time to hear the perspectives of the government of Ethiopia. And we have Dr. Tilaye Teklewold, Director of the Amhara Cultural Research Institute, who will give us his keynote address. Dr. Tilaye, over to you, please.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to be given this chance to present a keynote address. I'm afraid I will not be speaking for the government of Ethiopia in general, but I would say my perspectives and also perspective from at least the Amhara region, which is one of the constituent regional states of the federal government of Ethiopia. Before I start my small presentation, let me introduce you my institute, the Amhara Agricultural Research Institute. It is a regional agricultural research institute. We have in Amhara region more than 20 million people, and predominantly we have a smallholder agriculture where we have more than 5 million farmers, farm households, and over 4.5 million hectares of land. And it's a region which is producing about 35% of the national food in Ethiopia. Saying this, let me go to my presentation. Here is the content of my presentation. I will say a few words about the paradigm shifts in agricultural research and extension over the years, and our position in this regard. And then I'll talk about our problems of sustainability in our farming and food systems. And then I would say I would show a few slides on the drivers of African food systems and their implication in terms of the challenges that we have to tackle in the future. And then I would present the way forward or towards sustainable food systems in Africa and the conclusions. Next slide, please. Yeah. The focus in our research and extension system in Ethiopia, in Africa, in Amhara region, has been predominantly on production. As you know, over the years, there was this, in the 1950s, this technology transfer approach where research was the source of technology, and those technologies are thought to be transferred through extension to farmers. But this approach was in the 1950s, and it didn't last long. It was replaced by other perspectives like the farming systems research, where the systems perspective was introduced, and farmers were also part of research and extension, or the center of research and extension efforts. And then there were other developments like farmers participatory research, participatory technology development. All of these were really production focused approaches, and the other aspects of the food system were not really considered. But in recent times, we have the innovation systems perspective, where not only production, but other value chain activities and actors and support services are considered. So we are now in this paradigm, which looks into a range of activities that go beyond production to include other aspects like transport, processing, packaging, marketing, consumption, and even waste disposal. And all of these activities are really considered to be subsystems of a bigger system. So with this is the new perspectives that we at Harari are following since recent times, and all our research and development, research and extension activities are really centered around this concept. Next slide, please. Next slide. Can you hear me? Yes, yeah. Oh, the previous one. Sorry. Yeah. So what about the existing farming and food systems? Are they really sustainable? This is a question that we are grappling with and that we need to address. So as you all know, there are these three major farming systems developed or identified by the likes of Robert Chambers in the 1950s, the 1980s, I mean. So this is, on the one hand, we have the industrial high input, high output agricultural system, which is that of the Western world, where you have monocropping, high chemical input use. It's very productive, but it was productive at the expense of the environment. And we have the other agriculture, which is known as the CDR, or complex, diverse, and risk-prone agriculture, which is predominantly that of African and some Asian countries. So in Ethiopia, our farming system, we have different farming systems, but all of them can be characterized as complex, diverse, and risk-prone. They are complex because there are several subcomponents within the systems. We have the crops, livestock, trees, and within the crops also the crops are diverse, the livestock are diverse, the trees are diverse, and we operate in a very risk-prone environment where we depend mainly on rainfall, and we have also this climate variability, and this system is also not sustainable. And the third one is what is called sustainable agriculture. So our CDR agriculture is not sustainable, and it is moving in the direction of high input, high output systems. We are facing biodiversity loss, climate change, land degradation, and everything. And this system is extractive. We have from time to time seeing that our soils are developing acidity and also other degradation signs. So what are the way outs? There are two ways out. One is continuing the production-oriented agriculture based on increasing resource use efficiency, which also entails recycling waste and byproducts of one system to another, precision agriculture, reducing chemical use, or even using GM as long as they reduce or they are fit into the environment or environmentally sound. So the aim is just to correct the negative impacts or the negative environmental impacts of the industrial agriculture system, and to push the limits of the production-oriented agriculture. And the alternative is what's known as biodiversity-based agriculture or sustainable agriculture. And there are, of course, a lot of debate on this in this regard, which one is the best one. But for us, from government point of view, we chose to focus on the first one. Next slide. So in relation to this, within this context, so what are the drivers of change in our food systems? There are rising urbanization, very rapid, all over Africa, in Ethiopia as well. Cities, small towns are becoming big cities. Big cities are becoming mega cities. So there is this high rate of urbanization and improving per capita incomes over the past 2 decades. As you know, all over Africa, there has been economic growth that has also increased per capita incomes modestly. The other is population pressure. Now Africa is more than 1.3 billion people. That also creates, that's also one of the drivers. The other is declining poverty levels in connection with per capita incomes. And also there are change in dietary preferences. As incomes increase, people are consuming more and more livestock products and also other processed food. And we also have youth bulge. About 70% of African population in some countries are young people. We have climate change. Also, there are unsustainable farming practices. So these are all leading into different positive and negative consequences. On the one hand, we have intensification, specialization, and commercialization in our farming. There is more demand for food, especially for livestock products. There is increasing demand for processed products, and prices are also rising, food prices all over Africa. And these things have, by their own, are really important in developing value chains and for farmers and also for other actors. But also they are leading to, or they are putting more pressure on the natural environment, and the food systems, agriculture and food systems are becoming more and more unsustainable. Next slide. A case in point in this regard is the livestock sector. Livestock are an integral part of our mixed farming system. We use them for draft, power. Their manure is used in the agriculture as soil amelioration. But there are many challenges in this regard. The carbon footprint of livestock production is very high. And also livestock water productivity is very low. It takes about 200,000 liters of water to produce a kilo of or a kilogram of beef in some farming systems. So in relation to these, with the dietary shift also, there are this emerging cardiovascular diseases as a pandemic throughout the globe and in Africa as well. Next slide, please. So what's the way out? What's the way out? The way out is developing sustainable food systems, which really has its own technological and institutional innovation challenges that we have to face. So nutrient dense, healthy, and affordable crop-based food system is possible. And there are many indigenous African crops which are really very important, and African diets are mainly dependent on these indigenous crops. And the crops like teff, millets, beans, cassava, and other crops, they are really very important in African food system. And these indigenous crops were domesticated, but on in terms of research, these crops have not been supported very well, especially by international research. There's an international research system. For instance, we have the CGIR, and none of the CGIR centers deal with these important crops like teff. So we need to come up with technologies that improve this productivity and the quality of these crops. Next slide, please. And on top of this, there are challenges like climate change. It's a major task for research to come with technological and institutional innovation towards climate smart and sustainable food systems. And we have to deal with local production constraints such as soil fertility, poor soil fertility, soil acidity problems, drought, pests, and also there are challenges as well on the institutional front, such as coming up with innovative extension systems. Next slide, please. Yeah. In addition to this, uh, we we have to develop value chains that go beyond local areas for farmers to get more income, to be integrated into the global food value chains. So in this regard, to break and enter into global food markets, there should be innovative ways of presenting our outputs. In that regard, production of sustainable and biodegradable packaging materials, which is considered in this project, is really a smart idea, which would help farmers create niche markets in high-end markets. So we believe that in such a way, farmers will become part of the global food chain, and they would fetch better incomes. Next slide, please. Yeah, but in the process of developing value chains, we should be very careful because modern value chains tend to exclude small farmers because of quality issues. Quantity is also one issue. Farmers' aggregation of produce from thousands of, or I mean millions of farmers is not as an easy task. Organization issues, access to market issues, these all tend to exclude farmers from global value chains. And food systems need to be inclusive. That means it should be conducive for smallholder farmers to be included, for women, for use in this value chain systems. So for this to happen, value chains need to be proper, and we need to, as you can see from this slide, we need to be able to make farmers value chain owners and co-owners, not just engaging in production, but participating in other aspect post-harvest value adding processes as well. Next slide, please. So as a conclusion, I may say that this project addresses very critical bottlenecks in the African food system. As I said, it is in line with our thinking that we should go beyond production to see the whole value chain or to introduce the farming, the food system perspective. It's in line with our 10-year plan, which we have recently prepared. And so we will deploy all our available resources without any hesitation to successfully implement this project. So, and finally, I believe that you would showcase a promising niche of proper plant-based, safe, environmentally sound, resilient, and commercialized agri-food system. Thank you very much.